welcome back to Buckle Up Garage. I'm Corey. Today we're going to be looking into an issue with the white car Fat Bastard. While everything is running really good, I've noticed I got a power steering leak. I actually knew it was there for a while, but we're going to take a look into swapping out the power steering pump on it, and I'll show you what it is that I'm seeing here. Alright, so pump on this thing is, it doesn't get a lot of miles on it, but it's 2 or 3 years old, and I've been losing fluid. And I had last year I'd changed out the steering gear in this thing because the steering gear was leaking, like a lot of them do, and I thought that was the main part of the problem, and it was the main issue, but it is still losing fluid. So as you can see, the gear is pretty clean and dry. I don't have leaks here at the fittings. If I go down in and kind of get my picture in here, I'm not seeing fluid on the bottom of that fitting, and I'm not getting it at the bottom of the return line. So it's not leaking at either the pressure fitting or the return line. But if I reach underneath and I dab my fingers, I get fluid off the bottom of the reservoir. And that tells me that it is most likely leaking between the pieces of the pump reservoir itself. So that means I'm going to swap out the pump. So I have got a new remanufactured pump that I actually picked this up at Summit Racing down in Georgia on a road trip back. This is in their clearance items. It's got a much heavier duty main bracket on it, but I'm going to have to swap over the rear. It doesn't come with the rear bracket. I think the reason it was on clearance was the pulley that was on it was bent. I don't know if they thought that maybe the shaft was bent on this thing, but it was the pulley. I tried to straighten it out for about 10 minutes, and I went, this is kind of ridiculous. I'll just swap the pulley over from the old pump. So we're going to swap this one on, and that should take care of the power steering leak that I'm having. Alright, so changing the power steering pump isn't that difficult. There's not much to it. It can be a little messy. The fluid kind of gets away from you once in a while. Essentially, you've got 2 bolts holding the brackets that go through the water pump. That's going to let it slide back so you can pull the belt off. And then you've got the return line and the pressure line going to the back of the reservoir from the steering gear. The return line is low pressure, so that's just got a little clamp on it, and the pressure side is a fitting, because that is under pressure, so that actually has to be able to hold more pressure. That's the easy way to say it. So let's get this going here. I think I got everything that I need, and we'll get this pump out of here and swap over the new one. Alright, so that is the pump out. 2 bolts, 1 pressure line fitting and 1 return hose clamp. So pretty quick, took all about 5 minutes. So let's move on to swapping brackets over and power steering pulley. All right, so we've got the old one on the bench. I highly recommend capping off the ports, putting the cap back on. Kind of knuckleheaded it and made kind of a mess under the car, but yeah, you might want to do that just to kind of keep things under control. So first thing I'm noticing is this bracket has got to be swapped over, and the return line on the back of this pump routes slightly different. Comes out of the same spot on the back of the reservoir, but it routes straight down. So I'm going to have to get a little creative with the return line on this thing, but I don't think that's going to be a big issue. But the main thing we need to start with is getting the pulley off of the old one. There's a retaining nut on the front of it, and it is keyed to the shaft. So hopefully it doesn't give me too much issue. But let's get that zipped off. All right, so I used my impact to loosen up the nut on this. It is 7/8. It is not very stubborn, but because it's a pulley and a shaft, sometimes it's just easier to hold on to the pulley and give it a quick tap with the impact to zip it off. The pulley is on a keyway, and it does get sometimes a little stubborn and stuck. Generally, give it a couple of little love taps on the back side. Don't go crazy. It's enough to break it loose. And then, of course, there we go. I gave it those love taps, pull the pulley off. There is a spacer. Probably going to want to use that to make sure your pulley alignment or belt alignment is correct. So now we've got to pull the bracket off the back side and swap that over to the new pump. And I'm probably just going to zip that with the impact, zip them off too, just to make it a little easier. So we'll get right back to it. All right, so the new pump differs from the old pump slightly. Not a big deal. The old pump used bolts to hold this bracket on. The new pump is studded, but it did come with the new nuts, and I think I'm going to use those. I don't know. I mean, this isn't a high stress thing, but a stud nut is generally stronger than a bolt setup. So I'm just going to quick drop this in here. Put this in place. Get this started. And I said, it's not a real high stress situation, but yeah, what the hell. We can upgrade a little bit, we're going to upgrade. Because that bastard deserves nothing but the mediocre. Alright, so that gets the bracket on. When I've got two hands free, I'll make sure those are good and snug. And we're going to get the pulley on. Alright, so pulley is on. Get that torqued down. Came with the front bracket on it. Very meaty. Like I said, I got this from Summit Racing in the clearance aisles out of the Georgia store. We talked about this before. If you are ever passing by one of those places, they've got stores all over the place. The clearance aisles, you got to dig a little bit and poke around, but they get some good stuff there. So another shout out for Summit Racing. I've got the rear bracket swapped over. Like I said, we got to figure out what we're going to do with the different routing of the return line, but I don't think that's going to be a big problem. So let's go back over to the car, get set up, and put this one on. Go from there. All right. So should go pretty quickly. The only obstacle is that return line that's routing slightly different. It's got to come directly from underneath. So I think the easiest way to do that, I've got plenty of return hose on this thing. That's not a problem. But I think hooking the return line up to the pump, the reservoir, before this thing's in place is going to make it a lot easier. So let's get to it, put this thing back in, and hopefully that takes care of my power steering link. Ran into a little bit of an issue, bit of a problem. That nice heavy-duty front bracket that came on the pump from Summit is a different offset than the one from the factory. So I have a couple of choices of what to do here. Let me turn this around and I'll show you what I'm seeing. All right. So what you'll see here is the distance between these two brackets is too far. The factory bracket, fits right to this. So what I need to do is kind of space this out. I do have pulley alignment. This is the bracket that came off the old pump. So, and that was always right flush with the back of the water pump. So putting the spacers here brings that out, and that will line up just fine like the original one did. So I think for the time being, I'm gonna do this kind of temporary spacing thing, but at some point I'll pull the pump back out, and I'm going to switch that bracket over to the factory one. Just kind of a bummer, because it's a nice heavy duty looking bracket. Not that it probably really makes much of a difference, but it's what we're going to have to do with this one. But that also meant that the bolts here and down here are now too short. So I ran to the hardware store. I didn't have anything in my stash that was the right length, so I picked up some new bolts. Got some flat washers just in case I still need to do some spacing. But for now, that'll get it back up and running, because it's getting kind of late in the day and I just want to be done with it. So let me get the camera set up and we're going to finish this up. Change of plans. I can't even get the top bolt to line up, so something's out of alignment on this thing as it's going through the water pump. So we're going to pull this out. We're going to change that front bracket. Just go back to the original setup. And, now that I'm looking at the return line, it is a little short, so I'm going to quick change that as well. So I'm going to get this set right. Alright, so I pulled it all the way out, swapped the bracket. It's just easier that way. Got a longer length of hose on here. We're going to get the lines hooked up, and this time it should drop into place pretty easily. So the new pump is in. Everything's snug down. Got the lines. I'll reattach in the back. Like I said, it's getting dark out. Had to rerun the return line a little longer, as I said. Just gonna put some fluid in it, fire it up. Took all the hairs out of the lines. I'm not seeing any leaks. I think we're going to take her for a ride and make sure everything holds together. But I don't think it's going to have an issue. If it does, I'll continue on with this. But I guess that's going to be it for this episode. Again, thanks for tuning in to Buckle Up Garage. You can subscribe, like, comments. Would appreciate it. It all helps the algorithms do what they do, whatever that sorcery is that they do. But until we come back for another episode, later.